Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today with us. The question of the era for this region, at least, how to reach the Saudi audience with 4 super experienced in the Saudi market from different platforms. We have from a TV perspective, we have from fashion, and we have from YouTube, and we have from Instagram. So we have 4 different perspectives for you to share with us their experience about how to reach the Saudi audience. Shafiqa, the first question for you. 20 years digital experience. From a marketer's perspective, how does the Saudi audience differs from the rest of the demographics within the GCC?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well? Yeah. Can I start by just asking you, who knows OSN? Can you raise your hand? Ah, that's a good start. We operate in 17 different countries across the Arab world. We are TV broadcasters, and we broadcast our content that we buy from the studios through different means. So we have satellite, basically install a dish and a box, as you know, but we also have an OTT product, so streaming on-demand content through an app. So we're present in 17 different countries. Saudi is one of our most important markets, and the differences that we see there in terms of audience, the audience that we attract, we see a more traditional male-dominated kind of market, and the market that we have there is more Arabic in terms of language, preferred language. We have a website which drives 60% of the traffic into the Arabic language in KSA. It's the other way around in the other markets. We have 60% or more of our traffic towards the English website. What we see in terms of population is that they like to pay cash. It's a cash-dominated market when it comes to e-commerce. Another interesting fact is that they have really strong family values. So one of the functionality, one of the features that is really important when we sell to a Saudi audience is parental control. They need to make sure that they're in control of the content that their kids are going to see. They're quite traditional compared to the rest of the GCC. So you can't really use any type of advertising, and I really strongly advise to test your campaigns before you go live. So we did something last year. We launched a really successful product in KSA. It's called El-Farq. I don't know who is familiar with that product, but we had to revisit our creatives. So we basically featured a family of Saudi, the father, the mother, and the 2 kids in a kind of funny way, where we put them in control of their product and their experience. And I think they were a little bit offended about the way we featured them. They thought it was a little bit cartoonish, so we had to change our creative. So that's just an illustration of the sensitivity.
They're very engaging. They would give you immediately their opinion or feedback or feelings, even, which is very, very special about this. Is our favorite kind of audience. You quickly get the feedback. Can you elaborate more on the cash point you mentioned? They prefer paying cash? They prefer...
So, you know, in this market, compared to the European markets, for example, credit card is not the preferred method of payment. So something that is really big for us in KSA is Sadad. Probably all of you are familiar with Sadad. So it's a method of payment that people like as much as paying cash. So we had to invest in these 2 different channels. Credit card really didn't work for us in that market. So we have to use some discounts to get more people to buy through credit cards, and have campaigns with Visa or MasterCard to make sure that we drive more awareness and more people towards this method of payments, because for us it drives more loyalty. People who pay with a credit card stay longer, because, you know, we're a subscription model business, so we have to have people coming back and paying every month. So I think the reason why they prefer cash is because it gives them the flexibility to just come and go as they want. And it's something that we noticed with the Saudi market, is that people tend to like more and more the flexibility. So the proposition that we launched last year was a no contract product, and it worked really well because we were giving that sort of flexibility. Flexibility in method of payment, flexibility with the contract, and we're basically giving all of our content. So it worked really well.
Thank you. Shafiqa, amazing points. I would like to ask Abdullah now. Abdullah is 500,000 followers on Instagram. So he has great experience in not only Saudi market, you have the GCC and many other nationals following you because your content is very international. It's not only relevant to the GCC travel, adventures, lots of colors. So Abdullah, there are platforms that are incredibly popular in Saudi Arabia, such as Snapchat, in relation to other regions. Comparing to other regions, Snapchat, for example, Twitter, can be more popular in Saudi Arabia, unlike other regions around the world. Why do you think so? Why do you think some apps or some social media platforms more popular in Saudi, but not necessarily all over the world?
Yeah, thank you, Talal. I think this is a very interesting question, actually. And I actually myself predicted that Snapchat would decline in a couple of years. But to my surprise, it's still out there and thriving in Saudi Arabia. And I get this question a lot. But when you think about it, Snapchat is instant, it's organic. You don't think it twice before posting a picture or video on Snapchat because it goes there within 24 hours. I think that gives a safe harbor for people who are concerned about their privacy. You could follow whoever you want, you could comment on whoever you want, you could post and share pictures with whoever you want without having to disclose your identity, especially among women, which I think they're the big chunk of followers and the audience in Snapchat. And also Snapchat, I think the fact when it boomed in Saudi Arabia a couple of years ago, it was already too late for other platforms to catch, for example, Instagram story. At the time, Snapchat was really big in Saudi. Everybody has its own account. It has its own influencers and celebrities. And even the brands and whoever wants to use Snapchat as a platform to reach the audience, they actually tested it and felt it's the right way to go in Saudi Arabia. And I feel this contrast actually when I work with local brands comparing to international brands. For example, when international brands approach me, especially here from Dubai or elsewhere, they will always talk about Instagram, Twitter. They never mention Snapchat. Whereas in the Saudis, it's totally the other way around. When I work with a local brand in Saudi Arabia, they almost always concerned about Snapchat. They don't think about Instagram, which is very interesting. I always tell the brands I work with, you need to look again on Snapchat. I know it's tricky to follow. It's very difficult to get the feedback. You don't know the actual numbers of followings and the views, but it actually has an immense and...
Within the GCC, I fully agree with you. Same thing with Kuwait, same thing. Snapchat, when we mention it within companies in Kuwait and Saudi, they're like, yes, please. But international companies, because they assume that it's not as popular, they miss that opportunity. Now, Fahad, YouTuber, 2.7 million subscribers. I would for me, I think it's a bit tough. As Saudi content creator, Fahad, what do you think resonates? What kind of content would attract the Saudi audience, would make them go, wow, would make content go viral? I'm sure you know a lot about this. I mean, your content is viral.
Yes. Can you hear me? All right. I'm about to spit some knowledge. Please pay attention. All right. So to create content in Saudi that everybody loves, if you're from Saudi, then you have an understanding of how Saudis live, conservative country, family-oriented. So that gives you an idea of what could be your content next. For example, all these personal content on Snapchat gets so vital because back in the day, you don't invite a stranger to your home. You don't tell people what you dress, what you put on your face and stuff. Now that's possible with social media. This is why girls on Snapchat, Instagram, they get a lot of views. For us on YouTube, what goes viral, at least in my industry, anything that's social, talking about subjects, anything that's controversial, not in a political way, just controversial in terms, if you're talking about issues like money, jobs, racism, all of this.
Yes.
People, because back in the day, the way we voiced
that people go through, yes.
Yeah, the way we
relate to.
Yeah. So people would love to hear opinion, and now seems to be on Twitter where everybody's sharing their opinion. So that just goes viral. Anything that has a trendy nature that was popular in the UK or America, like gaming, food, women trying to do content, vlogging, all of these things, they just go viral.
Do you think because the majority of the population in Saudi now are millennials? Because those topics you mentioned are very attractive to younger crowds.
Remember, like these topics, because people back in the day, 10 years ago, you wouldn't see somebody on television talking, how do I put it? Like, I need to be as accurate as possible. You wouldn't see a girl on television in Saudi doing her makeup. Like, that was a very private thing. If you see a girl doing that on YouTube or Instagram, her account will bomb like millions of views. But one thing that I talked with the guys about in the Saudi market is different than any other market. Like when you do these content, it has got to be personal. Part of you performing the content and showing people that you do understand the Saudis. They still love this personal relationship.
Relate to a person.
Yeah, like for example, if I was a content creator in America, my only concern would be, I've got to make a good content. I wouldn't concern myself with, am I going to come across well with these people? I just have to be good. With the Saudis, you really have to resonate with them, either in your custom, the way you speak, your family name, something that makes them feel like, wow, this guy represents us. He's from this region in Saudi.
Great contrast.
And you're hooked.
Thank you. Hatem, fashion. We're going to take it from a fashion designer, 9 years in the market, proven himself to be not only a successful fashion designer, but he changed the trend, especially within male fashion, which is
Those are big words. Thank you.
Which is harder. So I'm sure you have a lot of things to say about Saudi market and how you can reach it. You are a well-known fashion designer in the forefront for the fashion, beside yourself. Because as a fashion designer, we're sure you look at other platforms, other influencers. You might even work with them for them to promote your designs. Who, or not, you just like watching them. Who do you think has been able to capture the Saudi market with their content? Who would you like your brand to be aligned with?
I mean, as a designer, from the very beginning, we are all prone to start creating our own content. In order for us to create something authentic, it all goes alongside our brands. So throughout that process, we have to understand that initially, in the beginning, you cannot have access to the, influencers such as yourselves. So what we do...
You could do, but through ITP now.
Yeah. I mean, of course. But what we do is we allocate people who are also creating noise, people who are influential in the sense where they have a message, they have a strong message. People like Ahad Kamil, for example, who is the Netflix star, people like Yola Fahad, who created his own, digital female superhero. Alongside that, with the influencers, creating authentic content, I think, is really the future. At least this is what I find interesting. What I find interesting is I've worked with a car brand and with an influencer who ITP was nice enough to provide for us. Bayan Lanjawi, she is a businesswoman. She is established. She has her own business. She's an entrepreneur. And we did the first women's driving campaign. From that, it was called Sa'akhud. I'm sure a few of you have seen it. And it was quite successful. And I think that brands also need to understand the region, and they need to go back to what's happening in the actual culture itself. I think that there's a jewelry brand that did an amazing event in Riyadh. They literally took King Faisal's palace, okay? And they turned King Faisal's palace into a showroom to display the jewelry. I mean, you are going right to the core. You are going back to the emotion. You're going to we got goosebumps. I have friends of mine who are from the royal family. They said, Hatem, I absolutely love it. I can't go because it's too emotional for me, but you can be sure that I will be going every week. So it's things like that. You need to get down to the core.
Saudi heard about it or wanted to see what's in there, how the palace looks like.
Exactly. You need to get down to the core. You need to touch people's emotions and also have a bit more empathy. And at the end, also, it's about heritage. So understanding the market's heritage is, I think, is crucial. So this would be my approach. And this is also an approach that I think would complement the whole influencer movement as well, is to team up. For example, an influencer can team up with an artist, team up with a poet, team up with actual talents as well. There are a plethora of very talented influencers, and I think that it's also a great gateway for designers and for brands to have access and more understanding of our culture as well.
Very interesting. I mean, if we talk about all what you've mentioned, there is a lot of things in common. So there has to be a person from Saudi. There is this cultural aspect to the content you create. They're very curious.
It's not
people.
so
They like to
one-sided.
learn.
It hasn't become one-sided. I think that now authenticity is king.
Yes.
You can no longer fool people. I mean, you really need to go down to the deep, to the core of what matters and what makes you move and you feel emotion.
I imagine people now, followers from all around the world, they can read influencers, they can read the brands. They know what's going on behind the scene. They know that, okay, you are doing a campaign. This is not a product placement. Okay, so am I talking to somebody on social media or a company? People know now even what's going on. So you have to be authentic for sure. And
There's different categories. Sorry, I'm like going on, but there's different categories. There's the aspirational figures who are inspiring all of us, you know, who may not be in the limelight, but are also very, very interesting. I mean, for me, having, for example, a Saudi girl be the first Netflix star, to me, is really interesting news.
Yes.
You know, Raha Muharak, for example, you know. There are so many great examples.
So young Saudis want to see something different, and they want to see people representing them, doing something different, reaching out to.
To add one last point, I want to say that designers should focus on what inspires them, even brands. I mean, I have a column on my own blog where it's called Gems of Arabia. Like, I've become so passionate about understanding what our country has, from designers to art gallery owners to you know, IT specialists. There's a plethora of people that we're not aware of, and I think that.
What is the name of this blog, Hatem?
Gems of Arabia.
Like to share it with the.
It's called Gems of Arabia, and the whole idea is to highlight basically the movers and shakers, people who are inspiring us, people who are adding value to our region, and people that also we need to shed additional light on, who may not have the following, but with you guys. We can, I think, unite and create a platform that is even more, I think, collaborative.
And if you allow me, Talal, I could build what Hatem said, actually, what I think is very important. And it strikes me how little brands, they are aware of this. When I get a corporation email, it's like, oh, we have this amazing campaign for Abdullah Blah. We want you to dress your kandora. It's like, let's start with, inside we didn't wear kandoras, we wear thobes. And and it just takes a very small opinion of a Saudi person to tell you what to say, what not to do, what not to do. I remember here in Dubai, I was working a major campaign a couple of years ago, and it involved me wearing a thobe and a shumagh. I wore my shumagh, and the client came, she's like, no, you don't wear the shumagh this way. It was like, and she was a European lady. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, no, you wear you know when you see sometimes who non-Arabs dressed by non-Arabs, they go I'm
There's no credibility there. No credibility, yeah.
Yes, and she's used to see this, so she thought this is the right way to do it. It's like, no, I'm the Saudi here. I know how to wear my own shumagh. Yeah, so I think it only takes a small.
It wasn't like, but we're paying you, so you should.
Yes, so it's like, we pay you to do whatever you want.
I would like to. I would like to add also that there's I don't know if you guys have been following. There's this huge backlash that happened towards a specific brand that had a recent event, and it was non-inclusive. It was more kind of MENA and not so GCC. I'm not going to say words,
Okay, please don't.
Keep it civil.
Just tell us,
but I think that this is, the social media is actually crying out. You should see the amount of influencers that have replied and have responded to not being inclusive is crazy. And it's a dear friend of mine who posted this. I just also tell you that now I think that the market is thirsty for equality and thirsty for something unique.
And that's why we have you all here. We all believe that brands have a lot to learn about everything in regard to social media influencers and the region.
Yeah.
So all these points are, I can't wait to hear more. And I'll go back to Shafiqa now, with 70% of Saudi population in their 30s. And now you just mentioned about the new platform you started 2 years ago, which is targeting younger audience. What is the strategy to reach them? What have you specifically done for the Saudi market, young Saudi audience, to reach out for them?
So I'll speak globally about brands because I hear things that are really interesting, so I want to say a word about that. I think as a brand, it's really important to listen, right? and to really understand what moves you. I think there's something important. I'm not talking specifically on OSN's behalf here, but more in general terms, it's important to have a purpose, something that connects emotionally to the audience. So we are a regional brand. We operate in different countries, so what resonates in one country doesn't necessarily resonate in another country. And we've experienced that. We've launched El-Farq, that it has an Arabic name. Western population didn't buy it because they didn't think it had Western content in it. It was actually a pack that was available for everybody. So we've done the mistake in one way, we've done the mistake in the other way, having content, products that didn't appeal to certain type of audiences. But what I hear is that we need to connect, we need to have a purpose, and we need to build a strong product market fit. Rather than just going and trying to get the audience, just understanding what really moves them, what they need. With the product that we launched last year, we saw that we activated a new segment. We appealed to a younger audience because we included new content in our proposition. We reduced the price, we gave more flexibility with no contract, and then we leveraged social media and we used influencer marketing to reach to them. So word of mouth is really powerful as long as you have a product that sells. If you have a product that people don't want, word of mouth won't work. But I think word of mouth is probably the most powerful marketing as long as you really have this good, strong product market fit. So we did a campaign on Snapchat, and we were talking about that earlier, which surprisingly drove amazing results for us. And we reduced our cost per sale by more than 50%. Wow. So Snapchat worked for us the first time, didn't really work for us as well the second time, because I think we didn't necessarily have the right person. So we also have to find the right influencer.
It was a different influencer.
It was a different influencer.
No, I'm joking. So it was also a long period between the two campaigns when you first...
We had roughly 2 months between the two campaigns, but different influencer, different message. So I think it's really important to make sure that the audience of your influencer matches yours. And then the creative side of things is really important as well, how they convey the message. So if all of these fundamentals are there, I think there's a way for a successful...
Shafika, you take the product you present to Saudi seriously. You know that the Saudi market is very discerning. You study the product very well, then this is the strategy, you would say.
So,
give what the Saudi market really needs.
So we saw that needs are evolving. So in Saudi, with a younger audience, and with Netflix, I mean, who is not a Netflix customer? Raise your hand. Okay.
Nobody watch Netflix?
There you go. So the needs and the expectations change. People want to stream online. We have a very traditional business with live TV, which still appeals to a certain type of audience, which is a little bit older, more traditional. But to meet the needs of the younger generation, we have to go with the flow. And we have to provide flexibility, great catalog of content. We have to have an unbeatable price as well. Netflix is really cheap. The old TV broadcasting business has higher costs, so our prices were quite high compared to what people are expecting today. And I think based on our conversations as well, there's something that is really important, is what type of content do you create? We have to have originals from this part of the world. So we have to create content from MENA for MENA. We have to create content from Saudi for Saudi, so we have to be relevant, and I think it's something really important for us to understand as a regional player. We tend to push the same product in different markets, but that doesn't work. We have to have a local approach. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Fahad, Abdullah, the Saudi market, the Saudi audience, just like you, are bold, opinionated, very happy to express themselves on social media. So before you create your content, what considerations do you take? What factors do you take in consideration? As you know the Saudi audience very well.
Yeah. Nothing offensive, nothing to do with religion, nothing political. You've got to choose your words carefully. Because when I started YouTube 10 years ago, and I used to do comedy before that, and I was edgy. And back in the day, nobody cared. But now, add to the list, you have to choose your words carefully. That'll affect you a lot. And And that's it. So before, I would improvise my content, especially if it's I have a good memory, so I would talk about a subject. I don't have to script it. Now I have to write it. And I know, okay, in this, I'm going to say a joke. I know it's a fine joke. And then, all right, something happened to me last year. Now I have to send that script to a company. They look at it. They give me an approval. And I go ahead. And that's for me.
Because you're worried that it will backlash and they will respond to you.
People love it, but you get somebody.
Takes a long time to execute if there's any question marks.
I've never had problem with the audience with my content, but with the changes, remember,
now there is legal.
There is lack of entertainment, and we see a lot of entertainment. People love entertainment. If you do something with fashion, they love it. You do something with travel, they love it. Food, they love it. Because we still, to this day, we lack content. So with that, the voicing as well. Because nobody, if you wanted to talk, television, radio. So you get people on Twitter who got a lot to say. Exactly. They would hear a joke. And people love to hear opinion, remember, to entertain themselves. And they would cause this chaos out of nothing. And it could cause problem with brands. You may not be in the wrong here, but the brand would say, the Saudis are loco. So they would rather stay. So yeah, you have to think about what you're going to say. Yeah?
You have something, Abdullah, to share?
Yeah, I was just saying what Fahad just said, actually. When I joined social media maybe 8 years ago, I already had published a few books. So I was used to certain type of audience, who are intellectuals reading books, nerds. But when I joined Twitter at the first time, it showed me that there's more to Saudi than the audience that I am used to deal with. So there's people with different walks of life, people who are not really happy with me sharing some thoughts about life and the society and such. So yes, even if you see, I would tweet, I don't know, 3-4 times 5 years ago, whereas it takes me a while now to even tweet a single tweet, because I'm not really there to, to receive a backlash or discuss public opinions. I try to focus on my writings, on my travels, on my certain opinions and some issues. But I try as much as possible not to go into these areas where people would expect a backlash or people not appreciating what I'm sharing with them. Yeah.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions here, but I want to make sure that you also have your time to ask, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So we'll take some questions now. And okay, go ahead. Please.
Hello. This is Rohana from ITP Live. My question is, from a content creator perspective, it's our job to always raise awareness or talk about topics that are not tackled socially, but how do we make sure not to get the negative backlash from people?
Question is directed to who?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Who is the question?
How you make sure that you make a content that wouldn't cause backlash?
Because it's our job as content creators to raise awareness or to tackle these subjects.
You need to put yourself in the shoes of the viewer, and you need to also empathize with the culture and the place that you're in. Like I was telling you earlier on, you cannot just adapt and throw an idea. It needs to be studied. It needs to be analyzed, and there needs to be empathy. There needs to be understanding, and we hope, as I consider myself a marketeer as well, because I'm marketing my brand, that we can actually touch people, So I think if you've done that, then you've succeeded. But there's no real way of knowing. For example, my video, which I'm also a filmmaker, the video that I did with the car brand, it took a while for it to be executed, like I was saying. It's because she's coming out of the house and she's not wearing her abaya. Her abaya is falling down like this. So the fact that her abaya was falling down, although she had an abaya, was alarming. So, you want to be, either you want to be safe or you want to take risks. I'm right in the middle. I would like to take calculated risks. Take the calculated risks so you don't lose out on an opportunity to show something great. So we're very happy with the result. It took about 3 months for the car brand to agree to put it on their platform. They said, okay, put it on your platform first, we'll try it out, and then, and then we'll post it. It was fine afterwards. So yeah, it's empathy in the end, really. You have to understand what's happening.
Cultural sensitivity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the
quickly
if I may, go ahead. You sure? You're not going to beat me after this? No, it's, for us, I think, working with a lot of brands, Saudis are really proud people, all about the culture, all about their tradition, their religion. So when you do any content, just ask yourself, would this offend them? Would this offend their culture? Would this offend their religion? Even a misunderstanding, even by the slightest, you have to be careful, because I've been doing social subjects for 7 years, and I sometimes, I don't know what's going on. Like, even me, I would sometimes miss the mark, and the Saudis would come to me and say, that was really offensive. It's like, no, it was not. It was a joke about an apple. What do you mean? It's like, so you have to really ask this question: is it religion safe, culture safe, tribe safe?
I mean, it's respect. It's respect in
Saudi.
the end. It's like protocol. You know, it's respect. You have to like really.
And it's not very
It's worth to ask people always, because sometimes I don't even, as a Saudi, I don't see it. So I would share it to my family members, and they would see something. Because again, I've been abroad for a while now.
But it's like in any other culture as well. It's not only specific to Saudi. You have to go through checklists before you produce any content.
But then I want to
Even in the
add
most
just
liberal or...
sorry, one more thing. Do not, marketeers and market, do not patronize the market, because although, yes, we have certain habits and we're conservative, we are very savvy. We travel a lot. We see a lot. So when you package and formulate something, it has to be just as appreciative as someone who is living in the States, who's Arab or Saudi, as they are in Dubai or anywhere else. Yes. So that's very important.
I think it's a great question. I just want to share with you guys a personal story. So I was working in Egypt for one of the main telecom operator, and it was in the mid of the revolution in 2012. And one of the candidates posted a picture on Twitter, which was quite controversial, about religion, representing some figures using Mickey Mouse characters. And this went viral. The guy was, as I said, running a party, a new party, and he was the shareholder, main shareholder of the telecom operator. Within a few months, the operator lost more than 1 million customers. It just went viral, and people were just telling each other to just leave that operator because it had offended something that was so important to them. So sometimes things that are not really in your control can also affect you, and that's the power of social media. So just wanted to share that. It's interesting.
Thank you, thank you. Any more questions? We have one here and then one there. And
Hi, my name is Amy. I'm from Marks & Spencer. I think it's super valuable that you guys are here. Just a little bit of background. We just acquired 15 stores in Saudi. And
sorry, do you mind raising your voice a bit?
yes, sorry.
Thank you.
The main thing that I really want to understand is the mindset of Saudi women. So we get a lot of visitors from Saudi, and usually they are men. But since you are men, I would take your opinion today. We've been speaking about what moves Saudi women, what is really in their mindset. And from a fashion brand, I really would appreciate if you can just give me like 2 or 3 things that's super trending now with Saudi women and what's really important to them.
You all can answer that, but Hatem, let's start with Hatem, since we mentioned
I mean,
fashion.
I used to know Isabella Blow, late Isabella Blow, who worked for Tatler, and she told me, Hatem, I've never seen so much haute couture in my life. I would go to the shows in Paris, and then the next day I'd see them at the wedding in Riyadh. Like, what's going on? Like, we have had ingrained in us fashion since the 20s, 30s. It goes way back. So basically, Saudi girls are more on the the simple side, but they want stuff that's very avant-garde and fashionable. They take risks when they can take the risks, and then they go a little bit further. But when they don't have to take the risks, they have to be cautious. So there's 2 types of attires. There's the attire that you wear when you're out, and then there's the attire when you wear at a wedding, for example. It can be décolleté or whatever you want. And then there's the attire that you wear when you're visiting a mixed environment. They basically have the same aesthetic as any Western or Eastern or girl that you can imagine. They just have to follow their traditions and their customs.
Hatem, thank you.
Did I help?
Let's take one more question, and if we have more time, I'm happy to take more. Please, the back there, the lady with the curly hair.
Hello. My question is actually to the whole panel. Working in the travel and trade industry, you see that the traffic is going to Saudi, not only away from Saudi, with the dynamics changing lately and opening up to trade and tourism more than before, with festivals and stuff like that happening. So does that put more pressure on you to be aware that your audience is not necessarily only GCC audience, like the whole world is more interested in knowing what's happening in Saudi on the tourism and travel side. Do you take that in mind, that your audience might be changing, you might have more global focus, and the dynamics with the brands might change over the next few years?
Thank you.
I might answer that actually, if you don't mind.
It's your area.
Yes, because
See your face. You want to say a lot of things.
Yes, because I see my platforms myself. So I travel the world, I share my experiences with the Saudi audience. But recently, because of the opening of the Saudi markets to international travelers, I mean, there is another influx of tourists coming to Saudi Arabia. And I think this is going to change the game in the coming couple of years. For example, for my own platforms, I rarely share my daily life in Instagram story, but I started doing this only recently because of my international followers. The minute I take a picture, with Saudi ladies with abayas or like Saudi the Shimagh, people like going mad, like, wow, that's amazing. Do you guys wear this every day? What do you do? What you don't do? So I think even the little things that we in Saudi wouldn't really care of sharing them in social media, these elements will encourage us more to show more of our lifestyle, our own country. Recently, I went to Al-Ula, north of the country, where they would have the concerts. We invited international names, either Arabs or non-Arabs. But it struck me how engagement I had of international travelers who actually want to come to visit Saudi Arabia. So yes, I see this trend is coming and it's booming. Anything would change the game, will make Saudi an attractive, destinations for a lot of influencers from all around the world. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I may add to Abdullah, I think that, I'm a product of the West and East. I'm very proud of my Saudi roots, but I was in school earlier on in Switzerland, and so I basically had a Western perspective on the East. And when I was in the West, there was this nostalgia and there was this missing of home, and so there's a lot of people who are not present, but they feel connected wherever they are in the world. So we also must know how to market to those. I'm surprised that there's not a positioning for Arabs or Saudis that are also internationally based, because there's so many, So I think that's also to add to what you're saying.
True, yeah, that's very true.
Shafika, you want to add something?
Yeah, just as from a brand perspective, I think what's common for millennials across the world is that there are three things. I mean, the pace of change is something you have to go with as a brand, as a company. Things are changing very fast. New technologies, new social networks. One day is this one, the other day is the other one. New trends. So adapting a fast, going with that is really important, embracing the pace of change. Then we talked earlier about the research of, the desire for meaning. We have to have a purpose. I think it's something that's really common to everyone beyond borders. And
Message.
Yeah, it's really important to have this connection and look beyond the commercial message. What is really the vision of the brand? What is really the purpose? And how do you unite people? How do you bring them together? I think it's something interesting to take into consideration.
Thank you.
And I forgot the third point. He's cutting me off.
No, I'm sorry. It's just that I know this topic is, we can have 2 more sessions and with you only, guys, because your experience is very diverse and very relevant. And we would have been happier if we had a lot more time for more questions, but you can always be in touch with the team, with ITB, with influencers, with myself to ask about the Saudi market. Thank you so much. I hope you had a wonderful time with this panel. Thank you, Abdullah, Fahad, Atem, Shafika, and pleasure. Thank you so much.